Got it. There we go.
All righty. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Inspirational Influencer News, People Making a Difference. And my guest this afternoon, Bill Pratt, is certainly someone who makes a difference. Bill Pratt is a college professor, a business marketing coach, a textbook author, and a professional speaker. Wow. Obviously, the whole enchilada. He has also been featured on a twice monthly TV program called Money Matters. Bill works with industry influencers, including Jay Shetty and Rob Goyette. He believes that with the right information, people will accumulate wealth faster and will be able to use that wealth to improve the lives of those around them. And we were just chatting before we got started here. And, Bill was saying that he got into this because he sees coaches struggling with the money and the business side of their business. They are good at doing what they love, but it is in the end a business. And that's the part that he is brilliant at. So with the 3 keys to building a profitable coaching business, welcome, Bill Pratt.
Thanks for having me here, Mary. Appreciate it.
So what is it that you do mostly with your business clients or with your coaching clients who you're helping with their business?
What I like to do, the primary focus is understanding that to create a business, you have to have a strategy. And most people don't have an actual strategy. They get clues, they get tools, they get various pieces of software. They go to a couple, free webinars and seminars and training programs, and they just kind of throw things out there without having an actual strategy. So one of the things I work with my clients is saying, well, and let's just say for a minute that one of their strategies is that they want to build a large email list, to be able to have people to promote and things like that. So that's fine. And then it becomes, what is the strategy you're using to build your list? So I asked them, how many people do you want to have on your list at the end of the year? How many people are you having to add each month? What steps are you taking each month to add those people to the list? Like, these are questions that most people don't understand. They randomly do some things and join some things, but there's not a strategy involved. So without a strategy, they don't have numbers, they don't have goals set, they can't measure their progress. And that's really the big key. It's not complicated. It's just simply sitting down amongst moving all the noise, clearing all the noise out, and simply saying, okay, what's my strategy and for what purpose? And that is really what gets them moving. It creates clarity. And the clarity is what allows you to take quick action and know that confident quick action, because now I'm doing the right thing. I'm taking the right move.
Yeah, I think that that's really, really important, because I know that I see people a lot out there doing a lot of stuff, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that and I'm doing the other thing, but it's never kind of cohesive. Right. And, you sort of want to build a tribe or people that know you and love you and trust you, that you can go back to on a regular basis, because they can help you find other clients, or they can be the basis for your very successful business. And, coaching is a wonderful profession. And I was just learning this morning, as I was attending a class, someone had statistics, and I guess it's sort of like liars can lie and figures can figure, but statistics don't lie, and sometimes they don't figure. But in any event, they were saying that there are more and more and more people coming online each and every year looking for an online business of some sort. And coaching always seems like the logical step. But then, all right, so I've decided I want to come online, create a business, and I want some coaching, and I'd like a coaching business. Now what? And where do I go, and how do I put that all together? And as we all know, the internet is just littered with people with good advice, and it's cross purposes half the time. So what are your 3 keys to building a profitable coaching business? I think that would really help people to understand that.
Here's the three keys, right? They're each their own distinct strategy, but it kind of goes together under one overarching strategy. The three keys are lead generation, first of all. And that means finding those people that could be your prospective clients, right? That's the lead generation, adding people to your list, adding followers, et cetera, et cetera. So lead generation, getting the people, okay? That's the first one. Because if no one knows about you, you're not selling anything, you're not serving anybody, right? So that's the first one, is lead gen. The second one then is client conversion. So it's one thing to have 1,000 people following you, 100,000 people following you, 500 people on your mailing list, 1,000 people on your mailing list, whatever, it doesn't matter. But then even if you go so far as to get them on a phone call or make an offer, what if no one's buying? So you have to have a client conversion strategy. Is there a follow-up involved? Is there, how is it? Is it a series of emails? Is it a series of phone calls? Is it a webinar to a phone call? Is it a webinar to a sales page? Those kinds of things. So you have to have a client conversion strategy. So it's lead gen, client conversion, then ultimately program delivery. How are you delivering your program? Is it one-on-one coaching? Is it face-to-face? Is it online? Is it a group coaching program? Is it hybrid? Are there pre-recordings? Those kinds of things. And then part of that delivery is, what are the tools? What's the tech set up for you? Things like that. And then certainly customer service, because the last thing you want is to have a client who doesn't get what you promised and is out there bad mouthing you. So you want to make sure that you have those three. So again, to recap, it's lead generation, client conversion, and program delivery. Those are the three steps that when you put them together, it takes care of the entire package of building, creating, scaling, and sustaining a profitable coaching business.
Yeah. So do you have particular products or that you kind of recommend to people, or is that something that you kind of do depending on the person?
Yeah, a lot of it depends on the person and what they're looking for. Most of my clients, one of their goals is to build an email following, an email list, right? Whether they're a podcaster, whether they speak from the stage, whether they are, just kind of just out there floating around, whatever. Almost everybody wants to build the email following, because we all realize that if you rely on social media algorithms, those change. Right, you could get booted off or whatever, and all of a sudden you have no access. But if you get the email from them and you get them in your email system, you have access to them. And so most of them want to do that. So based on that, I do have certain tools that we use to build a funnel, but understanding that there's more than one way of doing it, and that's actually the confusion. Because I might tell you, for example, that I use a particular tech stack. Someone else might tell you, I use this all-in-one funnel builder. And then someone else says, no, you got to use this all-in-one funnel builder. And then someone else says, no, you have to use these two pieces that go together. That's your best. For example, I talk to people and I say, well, how do you send out your emails? Like your autoresponder. And they say, I get MailChimp, Aweber, ActiveCampaign, MailerLite, all those. And here's the thing, they're all fine. But you do have to pick something. And I mean, there were days, Mary, where I would spend 4 hours researching, and you read one, you're like, oh, definitely MailChimp. That's the best one. I'll read one more article. Oh, whatever you do, stay away from MailChimp, but MailerLite's the best one. Okay, I'll read one more article. Whatever you do, stay away from MailerLite, but ActiveCampaign's the best one. And what I realize is everybody loves the one they're using. Because if they didn't love it, they would stop using it, right? It's kind of common sense. So what happens is we all try some until we find one we like. And it's the best one for us at the time. And so what I do is I work with the clients one-on-one. I have my recommended stack. So if they don't have the tools yet, these are the ones I have them put together. But if they already have some of the pieces, it doesn't mean you have to scrap what you have. The tools are tools. That's what they are. And they're not the thing that gets you to where you need to be. They're the things that help you get to where you need to be. It's still up to you.
Well, and what I've discovered with all the tools out there, and man, it goes on and on and on and on, is that they are all basically the same. So it's kind of like you will like what you are familiar with. Once you get one, really get it and really get into it, because that's what's going to make the difference, is not, whether this is this bauble or that bauble, or whether you go to this piece or that piece. I mean, the thing is, you have to pick one and get really familiar with it, because they're all quite complicated programs. And as a result, if you don't really understand them, you're not getting the best out of it. And that's really what you want, is you want to have the tool and then get the very best result out of it.
Sure. And here's a question to ask, right? Ask people in your audience without looking, what brand and model dishwasher do you use? And some people can name the brand, nobody can name the model. But here's the thing. If you have a Whirlpool, is Whirlpool necessarily the best dishwasher out there? Is the one you have the best? Or maybe a Maytag is better, but maybe the Maytag was more. But you know what? I've never had anybody that I know have a dishwasher they've had in their house for years going, man, I hope this thing breaks so I can get a new one. I love spending money on that, on a new one, because it doesn't get the dishes clean. Like, in other words, they all clean dishes. Now, some of them have racks that are adjustable, and some of them have the silverware trays in the front, some's on the side, some's in the back, things like that. Some are a little quieter than others, but for the most part, a dishwasher washes dishes. And really, it's not about which one you have, it's that you have one, so you don't have to do them all by hand. Right? That's really what a lot of these tech tools are. It's like a dishwasher. It's just, they're all fine. Some are a little bit better. I mean, like on the margins, a little bit better. One runs quieter, or, one has more adjustable racks, but overall they all get their dishes clean. And that's really what it's all about. And so don't get hung up on the tools. It's really just pick a tool, but just know that if you start building your business, the last thing you're going to want to do is change tools. But I will say this, if you build your business big enough, and I don't mean like millions of people, but to where you're making a good amount of money. If you do realize there's a better tool, it's not that expensive to hire somebody to say, see what I have in, say, MailerLite. I need all that in ActiveCampaign. I mean, it's not nothing. You'll spend money doing it. But the point being, if you have that many people and you're making good money, then pay someone to do it if you don't like where you ended up. But for the most part, I think most everyone's pretty much happy where they are.
Yeah, I think so. I think certainly with email campaigns, more importantly is, how do you keep those people that got on your list engaged, and how do you keep them from dropping off your list? And is that a responsive list or not a responsive list? Because I mean, I have a friend who has a list that he's had for a long time of 110,000 people. It's a very unresponsive list, and he'll be the first one to tell you that. He has a newer list of 10,000 people, and they're far, far, far more responsive. So, I mean, he'll put out an email to both lists. He's got them, why not? And, he might get one reply out of the huge list, and he might get 150 replies out of the smaller list. So, you hear this nonsense a lot in our industry about, oh, I've got such a big list. Well, that's nice. Do they respond? When you write an email, do they do anything?
Yeah, and there's nothing more exciting, especially when you're building your business and you don't have a ton of people, when you send an email and people actually reply to it and say, hey, that makes so much sense. That really connected with me. That was hilarious, whatever. And it's like, wow, there's actual real people out there on my list. They're not just emails, they're actual people behind those emails. It's kind of weird, but you get those kinds of things. You also know, hey, make a note. That was a really good email. I might use that email. Maybe that could be a future Facebook ad or a post in a Facebook group, if I have a Facebook group, because obviously it got conversation going. Things like that. So make note of those. But yeah, part of the lead gen strategy is building and growing your following. But building your following isn't just adding people to the list, because theoretically I could go out and get a whole bunch of emails from people, and just like whatever, just slap them on there. But are they the right people? Right. And then are you doing anything with them? Because here's what I found. A lot of the people with 50,000 plus people on their list, they don't actually send them any content anymore. They just send them promotions. Buy this. Go to this webinar, download this PDF, which are great because I believe in partnerships. I promote people. I have people promoting me. That's part of building your tribe and growing your list. That's part of lead gen strategy. But understand that they're not going to care when they see your email, because they're going to say, oh, here's another thing for sale. Here's another thing for sale. And you have to have emails going to those people that are good, valuable content, where they say, you know what, I'm willing to put up with Bill selling a few things, because in between, he's also giving me good stuff that's helping my business. It could be motivational stuff. It could be tips, tools, checklists, worksheets, I have one of my emails where I walk people through how to name a webinar. That kind of thing. Like I break it down step by step, giving examples, and that one I get a lot of responses from when they get that. Those kinds of things, so that they say, I like seeing Bill's emails. As I like to tell my people, when people see your name in their inbox, you want them excited to open it. And when you get that, now you have a responsive list. So when you do promote something, they're opening it because they're used to opening your email because they love it. This time happens to be a promotion. But the point is they've opened it because, who cares if you have 50,000 people on your list if only 300 open it, right? If the other 49,700 just say, another email from Bill, I ignore it.
Yeah, I've got a lot of I ignore them because they just promote all the time. And, it's kind of funny. I keep them on board just in case they come up with something that might be of interest.
I know. Me too. I have so many emails. I think, let me look here. I was looking at my email. I have 6,006 unread emails in my email system.
Perfect.
So
yeah.
six unread emails, and most of those are people promoting stuff, and I see that and I'm like, I just scroll. So and we're all like that. So we can't be mad. In other words, if you have a list of 1,000 people and you send an email, you can't possibly get 1,000 clicks. Because if you send an email to 1,000 people, if you got 100 people of that 1,000 to open your email, like you just broke a record probably. I mean, honestly, if you get 10% of your people, maybe not a record, but you're doing really well if you get 10% of your people to open an email. And don't be insulted because we all open about 10% of our emails, quite honestly. So those are just the numbers. It's nothing personal. They're busy. I have certain times a year when I'm busy because I'm also a professor. So, if it's the first week of classes, none of the emails get open. If it's the week of final exams and all the grades are due, none of the emails get open. There's like a couple times a year where I don't have time to open email. And everyone's like that in their real life. Their kids' birthdays coming up, they're planning a party, a work trip, they're on travel, whatever. And so just know that only about 1 out of 10 emails are probably going to get open. If you have that's a really good responsive list.
My favorite was actually somebody who had several lists on Active Campaign. And Active Campaign is a fairly expensive tool, at least, especially if you get up into a couple thousand emails. And I said to her, oh, how responsive are they? And she said, I don't know. I've never sent out an email. I said, you've what? Well, I'm afraid they'll unsubscribe if I do.
Yes. Yeah, you know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of the, and I don't think this happened much today, but I remember my grandmother, she had a sofa, and the sofa was covered in plastic, and you weren't allowed to sit on it. And I said, well, why do you have it covered in plastic and we're not allowed to sit on it? She said, that way it'll last. And I said, but what's the point of a couch lasting if it's not being used to sit on? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, that's basically the same thing. So what's the point of a list if you're not sending emails? So here's part of the lead gen strategy is understanding that a percentage of your list will drop off. Like I had the other day where I was just kind of annoyed because I had so many emails coming in one day. I just started going through, be like, haven't opened one of his in a month or two, gone, unsubscribed. No, I've had people I've unsubscribed from 3 different times because at some point someone promotes something they're doing and it's interesting and I get back on their list again. And people might drop off your list and come back at 6 months later. But the point is, yes, part of lead gen strategy is understanding that it's not linear. It's literally like 5 steps forward, 1 step back, right? You're always going to be losing people. And here's the thing. If I'm going to lose people from my list because I'm promoting something, then I don't need them on my list because the purpose of my list is so I can promote things. If that makes sense, right? It's the sofa. If the sofa is going to get ruined from people sitting on it, then the sofa is going to get ruined, and I'm going to have to build into my time vacuuming the sofa, maybe cleaning it once in a while, maybe getting it reupholstered every 5 years. But at least my sofa is being used, right? At least I'm using my list, and so you have to have a return on investment. I use Active Campaign. That's my favorite, and it is a little bit pricey. But here's the thing about email systems, more than anything else. It has to get through people's spam blockers. So to me, I use Active Campaign because it has a good reputation. And I know that if I send 1,000 emails, almost all of them are going to get to people's inboxes. I mean, it doesn't do you any good if you have 5,000 people on your list, but your email system only sends it to 1,000 and the other 4,000 get blocked because they're like, oh, that's coming from ABC email system, and those are usually spammers that use it, so I'm not going to let it come through. So you have to really make sure that the tool you're using for email, um, when you're making this decision, is that tool letting emails get through? Because I've actually seen some email systems that are like pay one price forever, and they're not good because the people who buy those tend to be spammers who are sending click here and lose 20 pounds, click here and gain 5,000 a day. And so when you send an email from those servers, the Yahoos and the Googles of the world are like, nope, we're not even sending them to our people. We're not even letting it get through. So that's probably the biggest one to look out for in terms of tools, right? Is, does it actually work? That's why I don't like a lot of the all-in-one systems that include email, because their email isn't strong enough. And I feel that that's a critical component.
I think it is. I think it is. So what other tools do you have people use?
So what I use, and I'll tell you my tech stack that I use. I use Thrive themes. Well, I use a WordPress site, right? I use Thrive themes to build all the pages. Some people like to use lead pages, which is fine. And I use Thrive, and then I use Thrive Cart, which by the way is not related, it's just a coincidental name. Thrive Cart, which is what I use for my shopping cart, so that people can, buy something. It's what I use for my affiliate center, which is how I track a promotional partner who promotes me. And then I'm able to say, hey, that person bought it and you sent them, thank you. Here's your $50, here's your $500 referral fee. And now they've added Thrive Learn with it. So I also use it as my course management system. So that's kind of a big one. And then I use
is that Thrive Cart that's added Thrive Learn?
Yeah, they've added Thrive Learn. Yeah, it's
oh, interesting. Huh.
And so I use that for those three pieces. And then I also use, I use Zoom for my actual coaching, and I use Zoom for my live webinars. I just use regular Zoom for live, because everyone's familiar with Zoom. So it's a pretty easy one to use. And then I use Acuity for my calendar system for people to book with me. Calendly is just fine. Those, again, that's like a dishwasher. It's just, I started with Acuity. I don't feel like switching. So, if a new client came to me, I would have them use Acuity if they don't have one, just because that's the one I use. But if they came to me with Calendly, we would just use Calendly. It's fine. So either of those are fine. So that's kind of the main tech stack that I use. Some of the other tools I use is I join some networking groups. I think joining a networking group is great out there. You definitely want to join networking groups. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else really, but those are kind of some of the main things. When you start getting into higher volume, you're going to need better tools for like a CRM tools. They call it customer relationship management tool. But for most of us starting out, you don't even need that yet. Maybe a spreadsheet. You might want to put a person's name on it, or a calendar to remind yourself to call them back in a week or two. But when you hit volume, you might need more tools for automation and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's always lots of tools, and we don't want to get buried in the tools, but that's really, the part of the business of coaching that people don't really think about. Even, billing, and where do you get your contracts, and where do you make sure that everything, gets signed, and do you use DocuSign, or should you, there are so many questions that have nothing to do with coaching when you've decided to become a coach, that, you really almost do need another coach on the business side to make sure that all those pieces, how do you build your business? How do you keep the business running? How do you track the people that are ready to, or showing an interest? Maybe you've got this business that's about, using email to run your business. Well,
sure. Even how do you transfer files between you and the client? Do you record the sessions? Do you upload? Do you let them record the sessions? What do you have worksheets that you have them use? And what system, how are you setting that up? How is there accountability? There's a lot of questions that need asked in there. And like I said, and when you look at it, you can literally lump those into those three categories of lead generation, which is, we talked about, all about getting people on your list, nurturing them, replacing the people that are dropping off, giving them good content. The client conversion, where you've got your sales framework that you're building, kind of the steps you're going to do, the implementation of that, and then whatever follow-up loop. And then what we were talking about here is program delivery even, right? How do you walk them through? How do you set up the appointments? How do you make sure that you collected your fee before they book the appointment? Do you package it as one flat fee? Is it a monthly fee? Is it a per session fee? I mean, these are all, and the thing is that there's really not a one size fits all. It depends on the individual. And that's really where the coaching comes in. Working with a coach is them asking you the right questions to help you see, oh, this sounds like what you need is this. Here's a quick example, Mary. The generic advice that I keep hearing out there is raise your fees. Meaning somebody who's never asked me about what my coaching is, they've never asked me about who my target audience is, and they've never asked me about what the outcome is, they'll say, whatever you do, raise your fees, double your price. And I'm like, but you don't even know. Like, how do you know to double my fees? I might not be comfortable. Maybe I'm charging 500 and they're telling me to charge 1,000. Maybe I'm not comfortable asking for 1,000. Here's the thing. If I confidently, if you come to me and you're a potential client, you say to me, well, this sounds great. I'd love to work with you. How much is it? And I can confidently say, well, working with me is going to cost you $500 and here's what you're going to get. Boom, boom, boom. Right? But if someone says double your fee without knowing anything about me, and then you say the same thing, and I said, well, my fees are, they're 1,000. You can break it up into 2 payments, or we could even do 3 payments, but it's really worth it because, and like, you're not going to buy from me because I just lost all my confidence. So instead of making more money doubling my fee, I made less. And so you have to make sure that the person has to know the values there, meaning the coach themselves, before you know to ask for more money. And so I'm really against a lot of that advice that's very generic of you need to double your fees. No, it might be we're all undercharging, but you have to be ready to charge and you have to make sure the value is there for the client.
Well, and you really have to look at your own mindset too, because, people have a tough time believing sometimes in themselves. So, before you tell somebody to raise their fees, maybe you better find out what their belief system is and whether or not they actually can.
And what if their goal is to help serve the low income people that are attending their church, right? And you're saying double your fees, raise your fees. You're like, but the whole point is these people don't have much money. Now there's creative ways. I'll give you an example. We talked before, Mary, about how I do financial literacy programming as well, but that's really not part of my coaching. It's its own thing. But what I learned is a lot of times I really like to help people get out of debt and that sort of thing. And the problem is those are the people that tend to not want to pay for stuff, basically, because they're already in debt. And so what I found was I don't usually charge them directly. What I found is, what if I work with a group who serves them? Like a nonprofit group sometimes. Sometimes it's like an employer, for example, that wants to help their people learn financial literacy. So rather than me trying to find like 50 people out there in the world and charge them money that it's kind of an awkward conversation, I go to an employer and say, listen, I have this program that I can work with your employees. It's a great benefit for them. Here's what we'll do. We can tout it. We can promote it. They're going to get this. And, and then the business will be like, that's a great thing. So they pay me a chunk of change. And I'm not charging the people I'm serving, right? In that case, I'm charging somebody who serves the people I'm serving. So again, that's the creativity side of things, is of how you can serve everybody, even if they have no money. You just have to serve them a different way. You have to be creative. And that's all part of, that's part of all three, really: lead gen, client conversion, and program delivery, because I have to generate leads now, not the people I'm trying to serve, but the employers in that case who serve those people. The churches, the nonprofits. How can I find, another way of serving that group?
Yeah. Well, you sound like you have a whole host of ways to help people. So how can people get hold of you so that they can get more of this? Because boy, you have offered us many, many great insights today, and I really appreciate it.
Sure. Yeah. The easiest thing, quite honestly, is just you can email me at bill@billprattcoaching.com. You can go to billprattcoaching.com, but you can email me at bill@billprattcoaching.com. That's probably one of the easiest ways to do it. The other thing you can do is if you're interested, I'm running a webinar where I actually talk about these three things. I go in depth. There's worksheets that come with the webinar. They're all free. And that's billprattcoaching.com/live. So it's actually a live webinar that I do. Every month I try to do a live webinar to really be able to help people with this. So it's billprattcoaching.com/live if they want to sign up for that webinar, upcoming webinar.
That sounds fantastic. I mean, what a great way to really get this instilled, because this is critical if you are going out into the world and you really want to have some success. And why get started if you don't want to be successful at it? And there's no point in going out there, working hard at something, doing something, and then you can't even make a living doing it. It's one of the things that I really want to help coaches do is really feel good about being able to charge more. And you're right, it's a mindset thing, but it's also, have they set themselves up to bring in those kind of higher fees? Can
Right.
they really attract those people that are going, oh, I'd love to be able to work with X because of Y. And so there's all kinds of things. So I think that those are great tools, and I just may come and tiptoe into that class because I can certainly use a refresher. That sounds fantastic.
Feel free to come in. Here's the big thing. If I were to summarize, we need to flip the script a little bit. Here's what happens. Most coaches are spending 80 to 90% of their time on administrative stuff and maybe 10% of the time on actually marketing themselves. And we need to flip it. It needs to be 80% marketing, 20% admin at worst. And I'm even counting really the coaching as part of the admin. So 20% of your time is coaching and admin, 80% needs to be marketing. Now, marketing could be writing your emails or getting the emails out, but also being on webinars, attending networking events, things like that, where you're getting word out there that, hey, I'm a coach, here's how I can serve, here's how I can serve you. We need to flip it. We're spending our time on the easy stuff, which is behind the scenes on my computer and not out in front.
Well, and even going to JV events, which, I've attended lots and they're very, very helpful if you know how to attend them and what you're looking for. But they can be nightmares if you don't know. So,
and that's part of your lead gen strategy there is going to the networking events because different networking events have different purposes. Some is, I need to go here to find a client. Some are, I need to go here to find a promotional partner, not a client. That's a different approach. It's a different pitch. It's a different mindset. Everything's different. And so you're absolutely right. You have to have the right strategy. This goes back to my whole point of most coaches don't have a strategy in place. And part of the strategy is, what's my strategy for going to this event? What is the outcome I want? So I know whether it was worth my time and money, right? Was my goal 5 promotional partners? Was my goal 1 client? Was my goal 3 leads? That kind of thing. And so really understand. And when you have that goal, it also helps push you to say, wait, I haven't got my 3 leads yet. So I need to go to another session, another breakout session instead of eating my lunch, whatever the case might be, is really being able to set that up.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. And for those of you in the listening audience, be sure to tune in on Wednesday for another exciting episode of Inspirational Influencer News. People making a difference.